Okay, it looks like we are ready to go. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Call to order the Planning Commission meeting tonight, August 18th, 2020. We have all members of the commission present, including our soon-to-be seventh member. So we're going to get started with that first, with our oath of office for Pamela Bloom. We'll go ahead and turn the time over to Tangi to take care of that for us.
Hello, Planning Commission. First, I'd like to welcome Pamela. If I could get you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Pamela Bloom, do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah
and the Constitution of the State of Utah
and the laws and ordinances of the City of West Jordan,
and the laws and ordinances of the City of West Jordan,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
with my office with fidelity.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I got myself a little bit out of order, so I'm going to back up really quickly and read our legal disclosure as our legal representative joins us here. So I'm going to make sure we get the legal stuff out of the way. So just bear with me. Due to the increased threat of serious illness and loss of life by the rapid spread of the COVID-19 virus, the chair of the West Jordan Planning Commission has determined that conducting this Planning Commission meeting at the City Hall or at another anchor location is likely to contribute to the spread of COVID-19 and would present a substantial risk to the health, safety, and welfare of the city's residents, participants, and observers. Therefore, pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-2074, the West Jordan Planning Commission hereby declares that the meetings of this public body will be held only electronically until further notice. This determination will expire in 30 days from the date that the chair of the Planning Commission signs the written determination. Okay, moving back into the to the fun stuff. Our first item on the agenda tonight is on our consent calendar. It's a discussion, hopefully a quick motion regarding the minutes from our previous meeting of August 4th. Any discussion or motion regarding this item?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion, I'm assuming, to approve by Commissioner Thomas.
I'll second the approval.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are unanimous on that. Moving on, we will move to item number 2. So,
Matt, may I take a minute just to welcome Pamela?
sure, Mayor, go right ahead.
Thank you. So obviously you witnessed that Commissioner Bloom just took her oath of office and is an official commissioner now with our Planning Commission. And I've had the opportunity now to choose the planning commissioners, as I have done a couple now. And this was a great opportunity. I went through several resumes, reviewed several people, and looked at their qualifications. And I am thrilled that Commissioner Bloom has accepted this responsibility and opportunity to serve our city. And I am looking forward to the work that she will do along with the rest of our commissioners. So thank you all for your service and your work. I know you put a lot of time into this. And sometimes some people don't say thank you to you. And I want to say thank you to all of you, and including our latest and newest commissioners. So thank you for your work and your service. And it goes recognized. We recognize the work and the service you do for us. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, moving forward, our first public hearing is item number 2 on our calendar, which is B&D Glass, 7668 South Airport Road. This is a preliminary site plan in a CM zone. 4205 LLC. Don Godfrey is the applicant. Do we have the applicant with us? Oh, I see you there. The floor is yours, sir. If we can get you unmuted here. All right, looks like you're good to go. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, so I don't really know what to say except for, you know, we've been in West Jordan now for 22 years on Nike Drive, and we're just building a new building, hopefully on Airport Road, to expand our business. We do light commercial work. Well, we do light manufacturing work. We do a lot of office buildings, like down around Thanksgiving Point. Most of the buildings on the west side of the freeway we've done. As you're driving down Bangor Highway, you'll see the three big buildings just south, right on the corner of I-15 and Bangor. And we've done those buildings. We've done a lot of middle schools and high schools. We do a lot of work with a lot of the colleges, University of Utah, BYU, Utah State, Westminster, just about every college around. And in our building, what we do mostly is we bring in our material, our aluminum stock links, and we fabricate it to take to the job site where it's installed in usually pieces or put together. We don't do any glass fabrication there. We have all that made and sent to us. And so hopefully this building will work for us. It's we're really excited to get going on it. We're in our building right now is like 17,000 square feet, and this one will be 36,000. So it'll really give us help be able to expand our business and run it more efficiently for sure. So yeah, we'll just be a single user. We're not going to be leasing any of it out.
Okay, we like them, these presentations short and sweet. Any questions for the applicant, guys? Well, that's unusual. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn this over to Ms. Elgin. You've got the floor.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. This project is in the heavy commercial zone district. It's just south of the Armory and west of the airport. And there's a big aerial of it. A few months ago, the whole parcel there had been split. So, but the county maps don't show that yet. So the yellow square there is kind of my estimation of where the parcel's at. It may not be exact. This is in the commercial zone district, even though it's really an M1 use, but it is allowed in this district. So that's why it is before the Planning Commission tonight. It's a good fit in that area. It meets all the requirements that the code, it meets all the code requirements. And that's just about it. It's not very complicated, but I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have just one, Chair, if that's okay.
Yep, go for it.
Just reading through it, I guess I'm surprised, especially since the parcel was just split, that there's no navigation easement already on the property. Is it normal for that to happen when at this part of the process?
There may have been one done with the lot split, but I did not see it in the records. They'll just need to provide that easement if it was recorded.
Got it. So either provide what's already there or put one together. Perfect. That's all I was curious about. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up to the public. If you are here to speak on item number 2, the time is now yours. In order to just let us know that you want to speak, just hit the little raise hand button. If you go down to the bottom of the screen, hover over it, you'll see a place I think it says reactions. You can choose to raise your hand, and that will alert us that you are interested in speaking, and then we'll go ahead and give you a call on you if you do. So please feel free to raise your hand now if you have something you need to, if you want to share something with us right now. Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand, so we will go ahead and close the public hearing for this item, bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion or for a motion.
I'll go ahead
I'll
and
make a motion. Nope, jinx.
I think I heard Commissioner Hatch first. Go for it.
We all wait kindly for someone to step in and then we all go at the same time. I move that the Planning Commission approve the preliminary site plan for B&D Glass located at 7668 South Airport Road in the CM Heavy Commercial Zone District, subject to conditions 1 through 3 on page 2 of the staff report.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner England. Any discussion to this motion?
Maybe one comment, if I may, with Ms. Elgin's response. I'm curious if the condition approval number 2, which right now says the applicant shall execute an avigation easement, should read shall produce an avigation easement. That would allow them to give something that's already existing, if there is such, and challenge me on that if nobody agrees. But I'm if there's already one on the site, I don't necessarily want them to have to go and do a new one.
Let's call on Mr. Murray for that wording.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, as long as we have the option that it's one way or the other. I think the way that he just described it is adequate, but yeah, either provide the existing copy of the existing avigation easement or produce a new one. So
are we okay to change that so that it reads the applicant shall provide, and will that cover both versions of what you just said there?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Hatch, Commissioner England, are you okay if we change that wording on that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, we appreciate you guys doing business in West Jordan and wanting to expand your operations in West Jordan. Thank you for coming with us tonight. That concludes this item. We'll move on to item number 3, which is University Federal Credit Union, 6822 South Center Park Drive, conditional use permit for a building height to exceed 40 feet and a preliminary site plan in a PO zone. Sanders Associates Architects, M. Shane Sanders is the applicant. Do we have Mr. Sanders with us tonight?
Yes.
All right, perfect. We can hear you. The floor is yours, sir.
Perfect. Members of the commission, appreciate your time this evening. University Federal Credit Union is a financial institution. They are affiliated with the University of Utah. They have grown and have the need for a campus, corporate campus. They purchased this property with the intention of building a 4-building campus. This phase 1 would include the first building of potentially 4 buildings with parking to the south. Phase 2 would be building 2 and then parking to the north. You can't see it on this site plan. We have an architectural site plan that I don't know if you could bring that up, that shows those additional buildings in phase 2 a little better. I think kind of the goal of the credit union was to really create a campus environment that was attractive and would motivate top-tier employees to come to it. So as we designed this, we really tried to create a campus that was at the forefront. Knowing that this zone abuts residential, we tried to articulate and mask this building so it was not just a big rectangle, a big box. So it's masked to be somewhat sensitive to the residential area. So it has multiple levels. We have a single level area at the entry. We have a 2-story lobby, and then a 3-story office building. These are the elevations. When we submitted this, we were fairly preliminary, and we had requested a height of 46 feet. As we got into the details, our parapet is landed at 46 foot 9 inches. So we're asking if we could bump that to 47 feet. I noticed in the report, in the findings and facts, that Mountain America Credit Union had gone through the same process and requested a 47-foot tall building, and that was approved. So we're hoping that that additional foot could be added to our approval and go from 46 to 47 feet. That is on the 3-story office building. I mean, there's a lot of levels to this, but the majority of that would be the 47 feet. We do have some stair towers that exceed that height, that go up to 55.6. And you can see that on that front elevation. There's a stair tower with a canopy that goes up that additional height, along with the secondary stair tower in the middle. I guess a couple other things I wanted to point out. We had submitted, when we submitted this, we had shown a bus stop. And there was some requests to make some additional changes to that. We've since talked to UTA. At this time, UTA is not able to facilitate a bus stop at that location. They don't have any routes going there. So we'd like to remove that at this point. The credit union, University Credit Union, has actually talked to Mountain America about the potential in the future of sharing the cost of a bus stop on the south end of this piece of property. But that would be in the future, when UTA has the ability to facilitate a line down that street. And then I guess the third point that I wanted to bring up was on the fence. I guess in this zone, the ordinance requires a brick or concrete fence between us and the airport. That fence is about 1,300 feet long. And doing a concrete and brick fence, it becomes very costly. I guess we were wondering if we could do a more cost-effective material other than the masonry and concrete that is in the ordinance. So that's, I guess, a question for the commission. We're looking at, over $200,000 to put in that fence if it has to be concrete or masonry. And so we're hoping that maybe we could look at another material that would be more cost-effective. I think that was it. We have some renderings included in the packet that you can look at and then answer any questions when the time's appropriate.
Do you have any proposal for what kind of material you'd like to swap out on that fence?
We don't at this point. No. We did look at the cost of a concrete fence, and it was very costly. Like I said, it was about over 200,000. Given the length, it's a very long fence. That west property line is around 1,300 feet. And I guess the question was, what is the purpose of that fence? Is that a visual barrier? Is it a sound barrier? What was kind of the reasoning for that in the ordinance?
I think that it just says that where the use is different, which this is different than an airport, and if it's a different zoning designation. And the Planning Commission, so what it says is you have the ability to impose a masonry wall, a decorative concrete wall that is comparable to or exceeds the durability, performance, and appearance of masonry. So that would be kind of like a precast, an opaque fence of other durable materials approved by the Planning Commission, or a satisfactory landscape buffer or open space that includes berming, trees, and hedges to adequately buffer the conflicting uses. In my opinion, where it's next to the airport, I think E4, the landscape buffer, would, I think it'd certainly be more aesthetically pleasing because you'd be able to look out and see the open space of the airport. But that's just my opinion. It's up to the planning commission, whatever they want to require.
So my first thought on that is, and I don't know the cost on this, but what about some kind of a, an iron fence like the one we talked about over by the hospital a couple of weeks ago, just that wrought iron fence, and then you could put trees along there to kind of balance it out. And really all we're looking for is just an obvious separation between the land uses.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like a wrought iron fence with some trees would also serve this purpose, right?
Yeah. And
I
so,
would be in favor of a landscaping buffer.
Say that again.
I would be in favor of a landscaping buffer.
And we do
Okay.
have that now. We have about a 15-foot landscape buffer that runs that whole west property line that has trees and planting. And I think the wrought iron would be, less money than a concrete or masonry fence.
Okay. Well, we'll bring that as part of our discussion after we do after we close the public hearing on this.
Perfect.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll turn this one over to Ms. Elgin as well to discuss from the staff point of view.
Okay, thank you. This project is in the professional office zone. It is the kind of development that the city is looking for in that area. There may be some issues with sewer capacity in the future. And of course, one of your conditions of approval that's in there that says they need to continue working with the engineering department to get that worked out. This is only a preliminary approval for phase 1. So I would actually ask that should you choose to pass this, recommend it, that you would amend the motion that is in your packet to say that the Planning Commission approved the conditional use permit and preliminary site plan for phase 1 for the University Federal Credit Union. Other than that, the applicant did a great job of describing it and telling you what their plans are, and I'm available to answer any questions you have.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question about the wall we were just discussing, or changing that.
Go for it.
Do we set a precedent that we don't want to set if we allow a different type of wall to go up between this facility and the airport?
no, it's by application by application. So,
Yeah, I just fear that it's a new applicant might cite previous approval but a slightly different situation where it really wouldn't be appropriate.
then that's your answer right there. Because they're really a case by case approval by the Planning Commission. So you're not setting any precedents because the only precedent the Planning Commission could set, it is in ordinance format. So.
Yeah, it's totally up
Thank
to
you.
us or the zoning administrator reading through it on what we do. And I think this, in my opinion on this, is simply that this is such a unique development because you've got the airport, you don't have residential behind here, you don't have apartments or anything like that. I think the airport is a perfect opportunity to find something different than a masonry wall. So I think we can find something that satisfies everybody. That's my opinion.
Any other questions for staff?
Just a comment, the same condition of approval, number 2 talks about the navigation easement. So probably I would assume the same thing, changing the word execute to provide a navigation easement.
Okay.
I've got one question if I may.
Go for it.
Okay, we addressed the situation with the sewer, which, as I recall, this was an area that was highlighted in red. So I'm glad we have that down as a condition, or at least it's very close to one that was red. The similar question is with the traffic. If we have a new facility here and moving into phase 2, putting that much more traffic onto Center Park Drive, have we done a traffic study to understand what that impact is, particularly for the light at 6200 South, which the left turn on that light is very short and it takes a long time for it to activate. And then as well, the cross traffic with Campus View Drive and Center Park.
Now, fortunately, we have Bill Baranowski with us tonight, and I'm sure he'd love to answer that.
Hello, I'm here. I don't believe there was a traffic impact study conducted for this project. But we did have some issues with the access, pedestrian access to the site. And we requested a special crosswalk between the new site and the, can you go back to the site plan, Lisa? So between the two access driveways, we proposed an access crosswalk with the RRFB flashers as part of the phase 1 project. That would allow people to access this site from the east. That we felt that was the biggest traffic issue on this site. We also have been working as part of the active transportation plan. We're planning a 5-mile circuit going around the airport. And this project will be one of the first projects that include a bike trail as part of that 5-mile bike loop around the airport. So I don't know if you can zoom in on that that bike trail along the frontage of this project, but I believe that's going to be built in as part of phase 1, the complete frontage of that bike trail. So we have looked at more pedestrian access, but the traffic impacts, they have not been studied.
Do we intend to do that?
Well, that's something we can do. You know, phase by phase. We didn't require it because this area is so much built out, and the amount of traffic it adds it could require a traffic study, and we would look at those 2 traffic signals. You know, what do we do? Do we add more? We change some signal timing, phasing at those 2 intersections, one at Jordan Landing and one up at 62 South. I think that's something we could look at as part of that maybe full build out traffic impact. We don't have to do a phase by phase traffic study, maybe just the full build out. Let me ask the applicant, did you do any kind of traffic impact study?
Yes,
full build out. Okay,
yes.
good.
We were told that we needed to provide that at the pre-application, and we did do that. And that was submitted to the city.
I'm assuming that's where some of these bus stop conversations came from, is based on that traffic study.
No, I think actually the owner was interested in that. That was really driven by them.
Okay.
It was just UTA didn't have the ability to do that at this point.
Yeah, that's something we can take a look at, see if there's any major changes to those 2 traffic signals. I think that'd be the main issues, like you mentioned.
So maybe let me ask it this way. At this point, if the applicant's already done that study and provided it to staff, staff will take a look at it. But what it would impact is how we operate those signals wouldn't necessarily affect anything on the site plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. We look at the existing traffic signals. Maybe they need some tweaking.
What about future road expansion?
We don't plan on widening the road in this location. It's already really wide. In fact, the city is repaving the road as we speak, and they're adding protected bike lanes on this street on both sides. So it'll have a bike trail along the front edge, and it will have protected bike lanes on both sides of Center Park Drive. So that'll be a great improvement. That should be done within a couple of weeks.
My questions are answered. Thank you very much to both of you.
Chair, I have a question.
Go for it.
Do we know when phase 2, I mean, is there anything in the works for phase 2? How close are we? Is it a long way off? What's anything on phase 2?
I have heard 2 years out, but if the applicant's still available, you might ask him. He might have a better answer.
Yeah, I think their initial plan was to do a building every 2 years. I mean, that obviously will be driven by demand, but their initial goal was to do a building every 2 years. When they do the second building, they would do the parking lot to the north.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for this item. Please, again, follow the previous instructions and raise your hand if you have anything you'd like to say or ask about at this point.
Matt, I'm going to unmute Dan Slaughter. He's had his hand up for a while.
Good evening and appreciate your time, Commissioners. My name is Dan Slaughter. I'm actually with the credit union. I'm with their construction and planning department. Appreciate your time tonight and appreciate your consideration on this project. We've been looking forward to it for some time. Just wanted to speak a little bit to the traffic study. The basic idea that they gave out was that for a long term, for the intersection at 62, they wanted to just increase the length of the turn lane to give further queuing. The other recommendation they thought about was a turnabout at Center Park Drive and Campus View Drive, and then a slight increase on Jordan Landing Boulevard for the approach for left-hand turns. And my understanding as far as the crosswalk is that was completely associated with the bus stop, which again, as Shane said, and thank you for all your help on this, Shane, that was associated with that, and with UTA not having the capacity to give us a route at this time, we opted to decline at this point.
Okay, thank you. Julie, if you can unmute Megan Allen. All right, Ms. Allen, you have the floor.
And actually, this is her husband, Sam. I just had to log in through her email, but I appreciate the time. I just had a quick question. So you had mentioned there's 2 other buildings besides the first 2. Will they be in the same phase 1, phase 2 area, or is that a completely different location, or where is that at?
Okay, is that we'll ask, is that the only question you had, sir?
Oh, and then just one other comment about the fence that you mentioned as far as what kind of material. I've always heard that the fencing around the airport is required because it is a military installation as well for safety reasons. So that's probably something that just needs to be considered as far as that the airport does remain enclosed. So people can't actually go on the property if there's a safety concern with it being a military installation. So.
Okay, and then really quickly, just hang on for a second. Julie, this, normally we would have Mr. Allen give us his address. Do we need that, or can you get that some other way?
I don't think I need it. if I have the full name.
Okay, just wanted
I
to
can
make
give
sure.
it to you if you'd like, if that's necessary, or,
We'll
Go
circle
ahead.
back if we do.
okay. And I'm in the neighborhood that's just adjacent to the northwest of this development, so I can see this whole thing right out my kitchen window. So
Excellent. Thank you for attending the meeting this evening.
you're welcome.
All right, anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring this back to the planning commission. I didn't catch the specifics on the building. You said a building every 2 years. Are we looking, we've got phase 1, phase 2. Is this a 6-year build out? Is that kind of the plan that we're talking about here?
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
So phase 2 would be the second building and the parking to the north. If, building 3 is needed and 4, those would come after phase 3 and 4 possibly.
Okay.
But their initial goal is to do one every 2 years. So phase 2 would be in 2 years, and that would be building 2 and the parking to the north. And this site plan doesn't show it as well. Lisa, I don't know if you have the architectural site plan. I can show them better on that one where those 4 buildings are located.
I cannot pull that up at this time.
Okay. All 4 buildings are located in the center. We've created kind of a center courtyard that is landscaped with those 4 buildings kind of creating that town, we call it a town center or courtyard, with parking on the north end and the south end of the site.
Okay. And then the other question, and this would be for either for Lisa or for Larry, do we want to leave that to the applicant on that fence to find out if there is a requirement from the airport that it needs to be a certain kind of fence, or
Well,
is
the
that something that we need to do?
airport's already fenced. They won't be able to remove the airport. There's a chain link fence around the airport now.
Okay. So that's sufficient for what the airport will need. The fence we're talking about is completely independent to that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I wanted to just follow up on.
It should be noted, the hotel that was a little bit south of here a few years back, we just required an increase in landscape buffer along there because there is the chain link fence for the airport. So
Okay, so with that chain link, you think that if we just didn't increase landscape buffer, that would be sufficient for what we're trying to do?
I think so, because chain link fence, the applicant won't be able to take that down anyway because that belongs to Salt Lake City and not this applicant. So
okay, I can get on board with that. Any other discussion, guys?
I just have a thought, just reading through the conditions of approval. I think we're covering ourselves here already. We've got condition 4, which is the applicant shall provide fencing and screening per the municipal code, and they can work through city staff, which the statute allows. The sewer issues in there. We've got the navigation easement, which we just need to change the language on. And I'm comfortable with things as they are. I don't have any issue with the height. Done it for was it Mountain America, and I think it fits the area. I think it fits the area. I think the building's beautiful, and unless anybody's got any other comments or opinions.
I got one, Chair, if I could make just a comment.
We closed the public hearing. Pardon me for interrupting, but Matt, did you close the public hearing?
I think I did.
Okay.
I believe
Just in case
so.
I didn't, just in case I didn't, the public hearing is closed.
My only concern on this whole thing is just, I would like to see some sort of what material you want to use for the fence, and not just use a blanket. I would like to actually see what type of material. I'm okay with changing it. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily concrete, but
Jay, I think, and I'm speaking for the group here, but I think we've moved on from a requirement of an additional fence because there's already a chain link there that cannot be messed with or moved, so long as they provide adequate
Screening.
is landscape screening. I think we're okay with that. I think that's kind of where we've moved to with this process.
Is all right. So we're not requiring an additional fence then.
Yeah, as Larry said early on, we can just require screening here, and that's sufficient. With the chain link fence and trees, I think, and brush, I think the bushes were good to go.
Yeah, and the problem with fence against fence is they usually become this no man's land, and garbage is hard to remove and things like that. Where landscaping, it's much easier to keep the premises clean than having a fence right next to a fence. And there's plenty of instances where that occurs. And so that would be my recommendation, just to have a really nice landscape buffer along there.
All right, then I'll mute my concern.
I'd
So
like
Jay,
to suggest
We appreciate you checking in on it, keeping us all on our toes.
Chair, may I make a suggestion to the conditions of approval?
Hang on one second, Commissioner Hatch, and then we'll go to Commissioner Shelton.
Thank you, Chair. As far as the height of the structure, I mean, 46 feet, and it's the same as at America First Credit Union. The roof access at 55 feet 6 inches. I'd love to know what that does to the sight line for the people living, I guess it would be east of here, excuse me. Or is that even a factor? Do we need to even be concerned with the 55 feet 6 inches?
You know, if you look at the scale of things, Trish, when you go out there and look across the airport, it is so, the distance is so big that all you see is another building. It doesn't really, it might affect your view of the Mountain America Credit Union building, but it's this is actually shorter than the MySpace Hotel that was approved a few years back. That was at 65 feet, and so, and that's barely noticeable when you're going down 7800 South. Believe it or not, it's just such a big distance across the airport. So.
Thank you. That provides a great comparison. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Shelton.
I was thinking we ought to remove the word fencing on condition 4, as the municipal code allows screening only.
Maybe change it to provide adequate screening.
But the code doesn't require screening only, it's either or. If you read the code, it gives you a masonry wall, a decorative concrete wall that's comparable or exceeds, an opaque fence. And maybe what we do is just amend that to the applicant shall provide whatever wording you want in there per municipal code and work that out with city staff. The
applicant has said they're going to do screening, or they've already planning on the screening. I think they had the impression they had to do both.
Yeah, and I think what you're trying to do is just remove the wording of fencing and just leave it to screening only, which is what we're looking for anyway, right?
Essentially, yes.
Do we say that that's as approved by the zoning administrator?
Yeah, that'll be fine. I'll be happy to look at this because I'll make sure that it looks decent. So
perfect. All right, anybody want to take a stab at the motion here? There's several changes.
I have one more question on it, and I would be happy to take a stab at after that. I notice in the motion and in the conditions, we never actually talk about the height. Do we need to state in here that we're okay with this 47 feet versus the 46 feet that's in the background?
yeah, are the two motions separated, the conditional use and the site plan, or are they both together?
They are together.
Yeah, then if you're approving the conditional use, that approves the height increase, but you can state it. That's a good practice to make sure that everyone in the future knows that it was approved. So
and that's okay. I mean, the subject here says to exceed 40, so 47 exceeds 40. Do we need to be specific about saying it's 47, or that we're just giving permission to exceed 40?
I think it would just stick with the exceed 40.
Just leave it
Because
as it is.
you never know when they get on site and start digging, there might be some obstacle and it might increase to 50 feet or something like that. So,
Okay,
Well, I'll give it a stab then, if that's all right.
go for it.
So I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and preliminary site plan for the University Federal Credit Union located at 6822 South Center Park Drive in the PO Professional Office Zone District, subject to conditions 1 through 4 on page 2 of the staff report as amended. The amendment being number 2, the word execute shall change to provide, and that the applicant shall provide a navigation easement. And condition number 4, we shall strike the word fencing and, such that it reads, the applicant shall provide screening per the municipal code 1314.3E as approved by the zoning administrator.
I second that motion.
I have a quick question, Chair.
Yeah.
Lisa mentioned at the very beginning that we needed to add in, make it for phase 1, approval for phase 1 of this site plan. Do we need to add phase 1 to that motion?
We do.
Yes, please.
And where do we need to add that in, Lisa? Just remind me. I forgot that we needed to do that. Thank you, Trish, for
Just like Commissioner Hatch said, that would work fine. Conditional use permit and phase 1 of preliminary site plan.
Okay, perfect. Ammon, are you okay with that?
Yeah, we'll modify that. So it'd be, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and preliminary site plan for phase 1 of the University Federal Credit Union. And then the rest as previously stated. Does that work?
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Shelton.
Yes, I can second that.
Perfect. And then I think I saw Corbin trying to chime in. Did you still have something you wanted to add?
Commissioner Hatch handled it.
Okay, I assumed that that's what you were striking out on. All right, any other discussion to the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are unanimous on this. And thank you for wanting to bring the world headquarters of the University Credit Union down to West Jordan. We appreciate you guys striking up a partnership with us. We look forward to the progress here. Moving on, we have item number 4, where this has been pulled. Do we need to actually have a motion to?
No, you don't.
Okay, that's what I thought. Moving on to item number 5, West Jordan Water Communications Tower at Veterans Park, approximately 8025 South, 2200 West. Conditional use permit for a 100-foot communications tower in a PF zone. Travis Martin, are we? Is Travis on, or are we letting you take this, Larry?
Travis, I think actually Tim Hayrand was going to
Okay.
talk on this. So
2 meetings in a row. Tim, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Planning Commission. We are looking at a very simple monopole tower in 2 locations tonight. This location is as needed as cited by a siting study, which was done by our water meter company. The pole is 100 foot tall. It is approximately 3 foot diameter at the base and narrows as it gets taller and ends up at about 1.5 to 2 feet at the top. The attachment is a 14 foot tall, 2-inch diameter pole, and it's very small and barely noticeable if you compare that to something similar like a cell tower. The reason the locations were selected is due to these towers being used as radio read towers for our water meters. The water meters have individual antennas in each meter location, which will allow each meter to be uploaded to the tower and then sent out to our data network, and which will make this much easier for processing of the data and billings, and also tracking water use and those kinds of things. There are only 3 of these towers that are needed throughout the whole city. So this is one of the locations. The other one is coming up on the next item. So, are there any questions on the tower itself?
Any questions for staff?
I have 2 questions for staff.
Go for it.
Well, maybe first of all, just a statement. Having read through this, I love the information that will be available to our city, the residents that comes from this. I'm looking forward to digging into that a little bit more myself, with the alarms for high water usage, the ability to in real time see how much water you're using, or roughly real time with the 15-minute increments. I'm hoping a lot of people are going to take advantage of this. The 2 questions I have, one is on the depth of footing. We've got a 100-foot tall tower. How deep is the footing?
Yeah, I don't have that study in front of me. It's going to depend on the geotechnical report, which hasn't been done yet for this site. Typically, these are 10 to 20-foot burial in the footings.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have is, I notice on the conditions of approval, we are specifically disallowing co-locations. Initially, as I was reading through this, before I saw that, one of my first thoughts was this would be great for some additional income into the city, potentially, if we did allow co-location, either for other cities doing something similar, if this site was nearby enough, or for cell tower purposes, something along that line. Is there a reason why we are not moving that direction?
That was that was more my requirement. It is a city-owned antenna, and so we generally just like to keep city stuff on there. But I don't know, Duncan might be able to weigh in on that, because that's way out of my lane of travel. And so that probably is a good idea. I don't know, but we generally just like to keep city facilities with city stuff on them. But hey, I'm open. I don't know what the legal ramifications are or the leasing ramifications are, but maybe Duncan can chime in if but
Yeah, I'd have to
being
do a
caught
little
off
more.
guard too.
I'd have to do a little more research. I'm not prepared to answer that question today, but I would just ask Tim. Tim, is there any reason why you see that co-locations would not be a good idea? Is that something that your department specifically looked at in Public Works?
I don't know any specific technical reason why it would not be allowed. I do agree with Larry that we like to keep our uses for city only if we can. There's something happens and we need to go up there and change something out. It can be, I guess, somewhat difficult to move around someone else's equipment. So that would be the only reason I could think of.
Yeah, and so that's your answer, Hammond, because I don't even know if you need the condition of approval, because it's going to have to be approved by the city anyway. And so, if you want to take that condition out, I'm fine with that. It doesn't really mitigate any detrimental impact at all. And so it probably doesn't even need to be there. But as Tim said, they're going to regulate what goes up there. Maybe 5 years they'll change their mind. So you never know.
Yeah, I'd recommend you take it out, because if there's no technical reason for it and it's purely a policy decision, then it probably doesn't belong as a condition, and probably ought to just leave it up to the policymakers if at some point they choose to do that.
I love it. Thank you for the conversation.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, let's open this up to the public. See if anybody here in the public is curious about towers. Looks like we've got Randy Brager. I wonder if I can. Looks like you got the floor, sir.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah.
I live basically across the street from this at 2236 West, 8220 South. I've lived in the neighborhood for a little over 10 years now. One thing that has always impressed me about the city properties there surrounding the park, the swimming pool, city hall, and so forth, is it feels very open and kind of inviting. And that's something that I've heard a lot expressed tonight in terms of, you know, the aesthetic appearance of a site and, you know, views and things of that sort. And it seems that a 100-foot tower, especially if we are also considering potentially having co-location with cell towers or other sorts of functionality on there, it seems that that could be somewhat of an obstruction of view, whether it be people just walking by on the sidewalk to maybe to the west of that location, or maybe trying to view the fireworks from the south of that location, or things of that sort. And so my concern would be, you know, does it need to be here? Is there another location that is not already somewhat designed to be, in this case, where everything is so open and has a nice view everywhere, somewhere else that isn't like that, that a 100-foot tower could be placed, which would not be as much, excuse me, of a concern for visibility purposes.
Thank you. Greg, if you could just state your last name as well for the record, please.
Yes, my last name's Grant.
Thank you.
Yeah, me and my wife and my family live just to the east of there, over there, Sugar Factory condos. My concern is what kind of, if this being a communications tower, what kind of frequencies and communication, you know, waves are we looking at in the distance, and what kind of studies have been done, you know, to long-term health effects in people that are in close proximity to the tower?
Okay, we'll have staff address that in just a moment. Is there anybody else who has any comments or anything they'd like to share? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this item, bring this back. Tim, do you mind addressing both those comments, just the location, if there's alternative options, and the frequency of the communications coming off those towers?
Yeah, so location was done with a siting study. These towers have to be located within certain parameters for it to work. Otherwise, we're going to have multiple towers. So if we start moving these things around, then we'll be looking at areas that don't get enough coverage, and we'll be looking at putting up a lot more towers. So right now we're limited to 3 towers. Originally we had 4. So we can move location, but then we're going to be putting it up in somebody else's area. And we also have to look at what city property is owned. So, you know, this is a rodeo ground. It's an open area. It's actually a perfect location for siting a very slim pole. You put your arm out, that's a 3-foot diameter. Very, very small pole. This isn't as big as what you see on a cell tower. Cell phone towers have large rectangular antennas on them. So this is quite a bit different than that. And also cell towers can be wider and more obstructive to the view. This is almost a flagpole. So it's a little taller than a flagpole, obviously, but and maybe a foot and a half wider. So I think you'll find that this will not obstruct your view, not interfere with any of the things you're used to looking at, and it is in a good location that we need to have for our metering system to work. The other question on the safety of the radio frequency that we'll be using. It's in the 450, around that megahertz range, 450, 500 megahertz. This is a very, very, very safe range. This is a radio frequency. Cellular frequencies are not as safe. They have more hazards associated with them. This is not a cellular frequency. So being a radio frequency, this is something similar to what the fire department uses, or the police department, or those same kinds of frequencies that are typical of a typical radio. It's not a high power frequency, and we have documentation from the manufacturer that there are no associated health hazards with this frequency. So we're very confident with the safety of the broadcast signal.
Excellent, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and bring this back to the Planning Commission for any further discussion or possible motion.
I have a question, Chair.
Yeah.
As far as the footprint goes, Tim, I mean, I understand that it's a very thin or narrow pole, but what is at the base? How much space is that footprint of that pole?
At the base, you'll have enough footprint for a concrete round structure to hold up the pole. So probably another couple of feet on each side of the pole for concrete. There is a drawing, if we can blow that up a little bit more, that shows that on the side here in this location. So it's still very, very minimal footprint.
Yeah, and so Trish, it looks like at the right where it's in the foundation, it's about 7 inches wide, and then it tapers from there. So it really is like a very, very thin light pole, just a very tall one. So it tapers down quite a bit. I think it, with all the other stuff around the park, I agree with Tim. I think it'll be very hard to pick this out compared to the rodeo grounds and the swimming pool and the senior center and all that. So.
Thank you for that clarification.
Chair, I've got a comment.
Okay.
I really appreciate the staff's discussion and review on this, and I also appreciate the public coming out and talking about this. We've had 2 comments on this one. I suspect we'll have some comments on the next one coming up, in addition to the third one when it does arise. It's a difficult thing to balance a lot of the time. Ultimately, what we found are 3 sites that are all city property that if we locate these towers in those locations, we can stick with those 3, is what I'm hearing from Tim. If we go with more than, or if we change the site locations, we may have to go with more towers. Am I hearing that right, Tim?
That's correct. We originally had spotted 4 towers, but in moving these locations, we were able to reduce it to 3.
So I really appreciate that staff is really getting into the details on this and trying to make this as beneficial to the city as possible with as little detriment as possible to the public. We're never going to be able to resolve this to a full extent where everyone is happy. And I hope that that folks understand that we are trying to do our best. With that, I have one more question on the height. So condition of approval number 3 is the total height of the communication tower shall not exceed 101 feet. 2 questions that come out of that is, 1, are we suggesting that the lightning rod attached to the top is 1 foot? And the second question is, when we're talking about total height, I'm considering also that portion of the pole that's underground. And maybe I'd be...
No, it's just from the ground level. It's just the exposed part.
Okay.
I don't know how tall the lightning rods are in a pole this high. I wouldn't imagine they're more than a foot, but you could put 101 feet, excluding the lightning rod, because I just don't think lightning rods are very big. So, but I don't know. You know, that's just my guess.
Okay, and that's where I'm wanting to be careful. I don't want to push this to exactly 101 feet or less, and then find out the lightning rod is a foot and 6 inches. Let's make sure we've got enough leeway within the condition of approval to make it work.
Yeah, it seems to me if we say not to exceed 101 feet, excluding the lightning rod, that will take care of our concern there.
Agreed.
All right, well, since nobody else seems to want to do it, I'll go ahead and make the motion here. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for the West Jordan Water Communications Tower at Veterans Park located at 8025 South, 2200 West, in a PF zone with the conditions of approval listed on page 2 of this report, specifically just citing that the tower shall not exceed 101 feet, excluding the lightning rod.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Motion by myself, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to the motion?
I believe we were also going to strike condition 2.
I think it's the second sentence of condition 2, because you I think do want it to indicate that the city will own and operate the pole.
Okay, we'll go ahead and amend that as striking in the second sentence of condition 2. Commissioner Thomas, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that too, yes.
Okay, we have an amended motion. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on, we'll go ahead and turn this back over again. I don't know if there's anything different you want to tell us, Tim, for item number 6 here.
So the location is on the New Bingham Highway at about 6700 West. This is where we just built a brand new water storage reservoir. As you can see in this picture, it's under construction. That's now finished. The antenna would be on the property where the yellow star is. It's still on the city's property, but it's closer to the front edge of the New Bingham Highway. We do have a power pedestal at that location, and that's why that spot was chosen.
Okay.
Everything else is pretty much the same.
Any new questions for staff? Okay, let's go ahead and open this up to the public. And if there's anybody here that wants to speak to item number 6 regarding this specific water tower, please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, looks like we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing for item number 6. Bring us back to the Planning Commission for any further discussion or another quick motion on this one.
I'll make a quick. Oh, Jay, go for it.
Go ahead.
No, Commissioner Thomas, go ahead.
All right, I'll just make a quick motion if nobody else has anything else to add to it.
I'm assuming we're going to make the same changes as the last one.
And is it okay if I just refer to the same changes as in item 5? You okay with that, Chair? Or do you want me to read them?
Duncan, do we need him to repeat them specific to this item, or can he just say similar to the motions that are the amended changes from item 5?
I think that's sufficient. We can, yeah, we get that.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Proceed.
All right. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for West Jordan Water Communications Tower, New Bingham, located at 6701 West New Bingham Highway in a PF zone with the conditions of approval listed on page 2 of this report to refer to the changes back in item 5.
Perfect. Commissioner Hatch, did you want to go ahead and do that?
I'll second that. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner, motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion to this motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, perfect. Moving right along, item number 7. Let me get to my agenda back here to my agenda. The public Western Well number 8 pump building at 6183 West, 8600 South. Conditional use permit in a PF zone. Again, West Jordan is the applicant, and Mr. Hayron, the floor is yours once again, sir. You're the popular man of the night.
Doesn't happen very often.
That's 2 meetings in a row. You're just going to make a habit of this.
I'd like to share my screen.
Please do.
Thank you.
Looks like we can see it. You're good to go.
Again.
Now we can just all see us.
Let's see if I can get this to work for me. Okay, so can everyone see this layout?
No, right now all we can see is the Zoom boxes. Looks like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time opening up my Zoom window here.
What did you want to show, Tim?
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to talk through it since I'm having some technical difficulties here. But on the site plan itself, I'll talk through the fencing first, and then the landscaping, and some of the noise controls that we have planned. So let's see. Looking at the site plan, we are proposing a building in the center of the property on Rodwin Park in the northwest corner. We have planned a wrought iron fence surrounding the site. And that fence is going to be, right now it's proposed to be 7 foot tall. We'd like to keep a 7 foot tall height for the security reasons, so it's not as easy just to jump over it. This is a future well site, and the pump will be located. The well has already been drilled, so it does become an important site for us to keep secure. With that, we have open landscaping. There are trees, but most of the trees are deciduous and conifers. We have some junipers on location. The deciduous trees would be good for winter site security issues so that we can see in and make sure we don't have any vandals or anything of that nature. We're looking at a rock landscape. It's a dual colored rock, and the size is about 1.5 inches to 2 inches throughout the site. You'll notice there are some low growing plants as well as the junipers and the deciduous. And we try to stay away from high maintenance lawns and things of that nature on these well sites, so we don't have to bring in a lot of equipment. And as far as access goes, the water department will check the site 2 to 3 times a day to make sure the well is running properly. Other than that, there won't be a lot of visitation to this site. During initial startup and construction, There will be a drill machine, not to drill, but it's more of a frame to set the initial well pump and pipe. And other than just regular maintenance, we don't expect any other traffic on this site. I'll talk a minute about the noise controls. This site does have an emergency backup generator. We've located that generator on the east, and it's enclosed in the brick walls, except on the south side. There's also gas or diesel storage for that generator, and so we had to have access for the truck to get in and fill that up. So that's why we left the south side open. So that's a noise control for the generator. If that does ever have to turn on in an emergency situation, it will be enclosed by the brick structure. The well house itself does not have openings on the west side to reduce noise. And we've also incorporated noise controls into the doors. And of course, the structure is brick, so that will significantly cut down on any noise. That's all that I wanted to go over. Are there any other questions that I can address?
Any questions for staff?
I have one question, and I'm just on one every single time at this point. Tim, you mentioned that you were looking, did I hear correctly, 7-foot fences?
Yeah, we would like to have a 7-foot high fence approved.
Okay, so maybe a question for this group. Is 7 feet a conditional permit? Is that something that needs to be addressed in here? Everything I see in the drawing shows 6 feet.
No, because it's protecting a public utility, so it can be taller. It can be 7 feet.
Okay, excellent. And then we're going to we'll have the 2 fences next to each other there on the west side.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I just got a quick question.
Yeah.
On fuel, is this going to be above ground saddle tanks for the generator?
It is above ground. It's a Convolt tank, which is a concrete encased steel tank.
Okay, but it's above ground. It's not underground.
It is above ground.
Okay. That answered my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, let's go ahead and open this up to the public. Is there anybody here who wants to share some thoughts or ask some questions about item number 7, the pump building? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for item number 7, bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please do.
Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report, upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for the West Jordan Well number 8 pump building, 6183 West, 8600 South in the PF zone, with the conditions of approval listed on page 2 of this report. And to note, there are 4 conditions of approval.
Thank you.
I'll second that, but I do want to make note that we are allowing a 7-foot protective fence, wrought iron fence.
Commissioner England, you're okay with the amendment?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On to the last item, guys. We're almost there. Let me get back over to my agenda. Item number 8, text amendment, accessory dwelling units. Oh my goodness, we've been talking about this forever. Amend the 2009 city code, adding accessory dwelling units to all residential zones with citywide applicability. Larry, let's do ADUs again.
Let me get this up. All right, so you can see the screen now. This is the ordinance. I don't know if the commission's taken time to read through all these. What I want to say at the beginning is that ADUs has become kind of a hot topic among people in the community because it's a alternative source of housing. It could be cheaper, and so it's caught the attention of the housing folks out there and even some in the legislature. Now, I'm not saying I am opposed to it, but my concern is when we first proposed this a while back, it was only for in the PC zone where new development was going to occur. So that would be as part of the fabric of the new development. Now, the neighborhood I live in and a lot of the neighborhoods that all of you live in, it's a legal accessory dwelling unit is not necessarily part of that fabric unless you have a family that are related by blood or their cousins or uncles or grandmas. Then that could be, that's perfectly legal to let a member of your family live there. And so what this is addressing is accessory dwelling units as an additional rental unit for all of the R1 zones and the rural residential zones and the West Side planning area zones, as well as the PC zone. So in my opinion, that is a sharp departure from M or R1 zoning. It basically, potentially, unless there's no proximity requirements in here or anything like that. So it basically makes R1 zones duplex zones. And so it's not a true single family zone. That is my one concern. Is that really what the Planning Commission and City Council want? And so, that's my primary concern. A lot of the issues about parking and that always get brought up. I think that can be addressed. The use can be approved by a conditional use permit. However, I would recommend that, as you can see in my staff report, the Planning Commission recommended the City Council that additional public outreach occur before adopting this ordinance. I know Salt Lake City did about 6 months of public outreach before they adopted theirs, and South Jordan did public outreach. And so that is my suggestion, is that and what that public outreach will be at this point, I don't know where we're in the current situation we are, but that would be my suggestion, is that this somehow get to the residents so that we can hear all opinions. We generally just hear from the people that are for this type of thing, and then we hear about the people that are against it after the ordinance is approved. And I want to try to avoid that to a certain extent. We can't avoid it all. We can't prevent it altogether, but because the last thing I want is a neighborhood to come unglued because now somebody's getting a notice about somebody wanting to turn their basement into an apartment, and they didn't know that was even legal in West Jordan because they bought their house in a single family zone, and that's what they expected when they purchased their home. I hope in this long rambling way the Planning Commission understands what I'm trying to get at. I just think we need to do a little more public outreach. And you may disagree with me, which is completely fine, and the City Council may disagree, but that would be my opinion at this point. Do you have any other questions for me?
Not everybody at once.
I'll step in. I completely agree with you, Larry. I think we need to address this, but I think we're a bit premature. Again, parking always comes up. I mean, I've drove through some neighborhoods today that are single family and they're so close together that parking, everyone's just everywhere. And I really think we have to be cognizant of what adding homes does or adding units does. And I do not want us to turn into duplex neighborhoods in our single family areas. So I do think we need some more research before we can move ahead.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, Trish, if you want to see a parking issue, come drive down my street. And I've attended several of the council meetings where this has been discussed. And most of the people that I have noticed that have spoke on this aren't even from our area. They're from all over outside our area. So I agree, we definitely need to do a lot more outreach and get a lot more opinions from people in our own community that are going to be living here on this. So that's my 2 cents.
I absolutely agree with everything that both of you said, as well as Larry. And Larry, very well described. I think we find that people advocate for change, but it's not until that change comes through that people feel a need to stand up and defend against it if necessary. And so we need to make folks aware that there is a potential for change here so that they can start coming out on that side and we can hear both ends. I am curious though, maybe a question for Larry, what will this outreach look like? And do we have an expectation as to what we'll receive back from it and how it will impact this this document that you've put together?
No idea and no idea. So it's a, you know, it's a work in progress. We do have a communication specialist in the city, I imagine, working with her. And, you know, open houses, that used to be our go-to all the time, but it's, you know, in a COVID situation, I don't think that's advisable. And so it's really I'm gonna have to get with Tawny, who's the communication specialist, and maybe some of the other people in the community and see how to go about this. And, you know, hopefully what I would like to see is a more than a snapshot of what the community really thinks. Because like Jay said, a lot of the people that spoke for it were not necessarily from West Jordan. And I know when this came up a couple of years ago in the general plan committee, there was a couple for it, and then there was several that were vehemently opposed to it because for the reasons I mentioned. And so, you know, I'll certainly keep the planning commission apprised, but it's just, I'm gonna have to invent something here, Ammon. So that's.
I have a question for Larry, Chair.
Go for it.
Would it be worthwhile looking at the outreach that was conducted by Salt Lake City and South Jordan City to see if there's a pattern we could follow?
Yeah, I know what Salt Lake City did, and so, but that was a really ambitious effort. I don't know if we could replicate it in West Jordan, but I haven't reached out to South Jordan and see what they did. I do know they did it, and so yeah, that's a good idea. Though, I'll make sure. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. That's for sure.
I also have a question. I noticed some of the new HOAs are prohibiting this. Is this going to affect some of these new developments of even having this as an option?
Yeah, if it's prohibited by HOA, then, you know, that's.
And I've noticed just looking into some of the new developments, most of the HOAs that I've seen are already prohibiting this in the first place.
Yeah. And so you're probably right. It's, you know, because it would not give the people the option in that case. So some of the newer developments we're working on with Jones Ranch and Wood Ranch, that will kind of be built into a limited percentage of the lots. What they're looking at right from the get-go is which lots can have an accessory dwelling unit. But like I said, that's a new development where you can kind of bake this right into the cake at the beginning and not try to do it afterwards. And so that's a good comment though, because a lot of HOAs do restrict things that are otherwise allowed by other people in the community.
Yeah, and I've noticed with most of the new developments, it's hard to even get a new development without an HOA. So it may even be a non-issue on some of these.
I'd like to just add another comment, if I might.
Yeah.
I really think ADUs are the future of affordable housing for all communities. And I do think, I live in an HOA and it would be prohibited in West Jordan. And I think a lot of HOAs will, as you said, Larry, bake that in. But I do think it's inevitable. And a lot on how we package this and how we present it to the city and the residents, I think it's key, because housing is just so expensive and we just need to find a way to create a space for our families to stay in our community. So I do believe the PR around this is very sensitive, and we really need to package it in the right way.
I agree.
Okay, I think
Larry, could you?
hang on. Do you have a question for staff, Ammon, or just a comment?
Yeah, a question.
Go for it.
And Larry, can you speak to how Salt Lake City's program was received and how the public outreach influenced their eventual code?
Salt Lake City, when they've been doing this for a few years now, I think almost 10 years, they at first restricted it to certain zones, and I forget which one they were. I think it was some in the lower avenues and those areas. And then a couple of years ago, they went out with, more of a public outreach. And I don't know if they allow it in all of their residential zones, but I think they allow it in many of their residential zones now. So it's been kind of a progression in Salt Lake. It wasn't one fell swoop. It started in the avenues, and I think when Ralph Becker was mayor, and then it until a couple of years ago, they've kind of worked it into more areas of the city, because some of the citizens wanted it there. And that may be an approach, that you do one area of the city, and then if other people want the opportunity, believe me, the council will hear about it, because they'll want to know why they don't have that right also. So, and that again is, outreach. I'm just saying I'd rather be safe than sorry is what I'd rather do.
I agree. Unless there's not another question specifically for staff at this time, we've got several members of the public that have been waiting the entire night to have their say. Specifically, we've got two with their hands up. So I want to go ahead and open up the public hearing in order here. We'll start with Harold Shaw, followed by Matthew Cluett, Andrea Bai, and then Harold. Oh, Harold just got promoted. So Harold, then Matthew, then Andrea, and then we'll go to that point. Harold, let's get Harold unmuted there. There you go. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Under the current accessory provisions, family can occupy, but when I built my house, I built in a provision so that I could have my mother or my mother-in-law come and live in my basement apartment. And we build it so that it would work that way. As we get older, we find that we have a need for medical care, and we'd like to use that same space for people who are in the medical profession to come in, take that space, and be able to care for us in the upper story. Under the present provision, we cannot do that. Also, if we would like to have Latter-day Saint missionaries come and stay, there is no provision for that because they're not related to us. It needs to be, this provision needs to be amended so that we can have more leeway in how we use the space in our houses according to the needs that we have, without it becoming a commercial endeavor alone. The other problem with the provisions of this accessory dwelling is that there's no enforcement provision. And currently, in at least my neighborhood, we have all kinds of people using their basements for commercial reasons to get money, and nothing is done to prevent it. Nothing's happening when it's discovered. How can we change that?
Okay, we'll address the questions that you might get, that the public may ask after we've closed the public hearing. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Shaw?
No.
Okay, thank you for coming in. We'll address those questions at the end. Mr. Cluett.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Matthew Cluett. I am the Public Policy Director of the Salt Lake Board of Realtors. I'm one of those housing advocates that was referred to earlier. I would like to first thank you guys for considering, continuing to consider this important item on the agenda and for preparing this text amendment. As was referred to earlier by Commissioner Hatch, we are in a severe housing inventory and housing affordability crisis, and it's only looking to get worse. People who may have moved into their homes 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago would most likely not be able to afford their homes that they're living in today. And we're only going to see that problem exacerbate as we have more individuals coming into the state and more individuals who are growing up in this state and wanting to stay in Utah. ADUs can be an excellent option for communities to address affordable housing issues. It can be a great way for giving opportunities to young professionals, current residents, retirees on fixed incomes, and others to address current and future housing situations. As you move forward with continuing to address this really important issue of affordable housing and housing inventory, I urge you to continue to look into ADUs as a possible option for addressing this issue. And I would just like to express my thanks to all of you who are currently working on this and offer our help of myself and the policy team at the Salt Lake Board to help in any way we can with your staff, with this commission, and with elected officers of the city to continue to work on this ADU ordinance to provide a good way to provide for attainable housing for many individuals throughout the city of West Jordan. I look forward to hearing this continuation of this topic as you recommend, if you do decide to recommend for more consideration and public outreach on this issue, and would be happy to provide assistance in the future from our association. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And next we have Andrea Bai, I believe is how I would say that.
You pronounced it right, so
good.
Thank you. I would love to be able to build an accessory dwelling unit on my property. We have a little under half an acre here in West Jordan, and we have plenty of room to build a house, plenty of room for parking. My parents, they did live in California, but because of COVID, they had to leave their home. And so they're currently in my house, and we want to try to find an affordable house for them, but that doesn't exist here in Utah. And so I would love to be able to make it so they can just live in my backyard. And that way, as they get older, they would also be close by so that I can help take care of needs as they're aging. I respect the fact that you guys would want to make sure that other residents of West Jordan would approve this. I just hope that that process wouldn't take forever long, especially with COVID. People's financial security is up in the air, and housing, the prices are just ridiculous, as you've already mentioned. And also a lot of older established neighborhoods, at least in my neighborhood, our backyards are huge, and the newer developments that would have the HOAs, I'm sure their units are smaller and wouldn't really have the ability to build onto it. So I hope that it's not only looked at for future housing developments, but that it could also be looked at for established neighborhoods where we've got a lot of land and we could put it to good use. I do know someone mentioned though that these types of units could already be used for family members, but I don't think my neighborhood allows it. I mean, I know that we could turn our basement into a like mother-in-law apartment, but I would love to just have a separate unit on my property. So I don't believe that's approved for my area. If it is, please let me know, and then we'll just start building. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I think I saw Spencer Reel, then Patty Miranda.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your time with this. I'm just wanted to add a thought that I think about a lot. I am a relatively new resident in West Jordan. I live in an apartment building. And for me, the way I think about this issue is obviously balancing stakeholders that are involved. But there are lots of people that move to this area and lots of people that want to live in West Jordan. And it feels unfortunate to me that lots of talented people that might want to live here end up being able to rent for a little while, and then they want to put down roots and are unable to because housing is relatively unaffordable. And that's really just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty Miranda. Can we unmute Patty? I can't, I don't have that permission anymore. There we go. Patty, the floor is yours.
I'm concerned about ADUs in West Jordan because of our zones. And if we are allowed, will the zoning be changed? And additionally, our neighborhood roads are not built to have more than one family living in the houses currently. We already have multiple families renting single family homes in our neighborhood, overcrowding our streets with cars, making it difficult to drive down, impairing vision when turning corners, and creating a bottleneck where larger first responder vehicles were unable to make it around corners. I live in a cul-de-sac, and half the time there are cars on both sides, and getting out of our cul-de-sac is one way then, and it's one way, one lane. And also, what's the plan for overseeing these rentals to single families? As I've stated already, we have an issue with single family homes being made into apartment and rented to multiple families. And we've been unable to receive a lot of support to address this issue. And adding the ADUs will just enhance overloading our community. I have an illegal ADU right now next to my property where there's been unsavory characters allowed to live there. And it's difficult for the homeowner to get them out, endangering myself and my family and impacting my quality of life. I really feel like it's unsafe continuing to live in West Jordan if this passes, unless there's a lot of control and control that you can actually see. I've lived here for over 40 years and I really don't want to leave the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, is there anybody else that wants to speak at this point? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this and bring this back. As you guys are organizing your thoughts and preparing whatever you're going to say, there was one thing that came up in the comments that I really think is important, and that is if we do go forward with Larry's recommendation of further outreach being conducted, that we put a time frame on this, that we get this done and we quit kicking the can down the road, because I feel like we've been doing that for quite some time with this item. And it's good because we want to get it right, but we need to get it done. We need to come to our final decision on this. And I would suggest that if we do suggest that we put a, some kind of a requirement that we try to get this done by the end of 6 months, so end of February 2021. I think it's important that we have a final play on the books, sooner than later. That's just my 2 thoughts.
I have a question, Chair.
Yes.
How many of the cities surrounding West Jordan already have ADUs allowed? Are we pretty much the lone or the isolated city? Is Taylorsville, do they allow ADUs? What are the statistics on?
The only 2 that I know of, Trish, are the only 2 I've researched so far are South Jordan and Salt Lake. Somebody may, I haven't done that kind of research, but I certainly will. So.
Yeah, I think that would just be interesting to note, because I do believe they are the wave of the future. But it would be nice to hear what our neighboring communities are doing, so we can be in alignment with them and also learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, and I do recall Midvale a couple of weeks ago I think they're considering the AD ordinance too, but I'll do that research and report back to the Planning Commission. So.
I'll go ahead and make a motion unless somebody else. Oh,
Go ahead, Trish. Go ahead. I was going to make a motion.
Okay. I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation to the City Council that further public outreach be conducted for this application with a tentative, should we say tentative deadline for February 2021?
I'm okay with that.
Or do you want a firm deadline?
I mean, ultimately, City Council is going to make the decision on that date, whatever they decide. So I think that's a great recommendation.
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner England. Any further discussion to this motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, we made it, guys. We did it. It's all the way to the end. Not a bad way to introduce yourself to the group here, Pamela. So welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Unless anybody else has any other business, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay,
I second.
That makes us adjourned until September 1st. So we'll see you guys next month.